The invitation landed on my doormat like a knife. I picked it up, and the paper felt thin and cheap, like the fake smile they kept for guests. My hands shook. On the front, in careful gold script, were two names I trusted, his and hers. I read them twice, 3 times, my eyes skipping like a broken record. My phone buzzed in my pocket with a photo message from an unknown number, him and her, laughing in a cafe, arms wrapped like they owned everything. I had been standing in their kitchen 3 weeks ago, stirring pasta while he told me about a job interview, and she hugged his back and said, "You can do it." I thought it was friendship. I thought I was safe. My throat burned. I could feel every small lie stacking inside me. The invitation said the wedding was 6 weeks away. They wanted my presence. My laughter came out like a bark, sharp and too loud. I imagined handing the card back with fire in my eyes, but what I actually did was sit on the floor and stare at the ceiling until the room tilted. The betrayal hit like thunder. How could they plan a wedding with the person who loved me? How could my best friend smile while breaking me? I remember the first time I met him, a sunbright afternoon, his laugh filling the park while my best friend cheered. I believed in small moments, the way he brushed hair from my face, the way he learned what I liked to cook. I thought our promises were soft armor. That armor was gone now. I held the invite and felt ridiculous for the hours of dreaming I had gifted them both. My mind raced with all the places they must have hidden their secret. Late texts, hushed calls, shared looks. My stomach turned. I wanted to smash dishes. Instead, I folded the invitation carefully and slid it into the back pocket of my jeans. I told myself I would not cry in public. I imagined the scene at the wedding, their vows and my silence like an accusation. "Emily," my voice said in my head, soft and steady. That's all I had left, my name, my stubbornness. I called my sister, who thought the invite was a prank at first. She told me to breathe, to think. Think I thought about what? About leaving. About telling everyone. I needed proof, not wild words. The laughter I'd made earlier echoed in my ears like a dare. I stood up and walked to the closet. I would find out how deep this was. If they wanted an audience, they would get one. Planned, precise, and mine. I started with their messages. I knew his number was like a shape. My hands hovered over the call log, then tapped. Voicemail. Nothing. I moved to her chat history on my phone because she had left her messages open on my table that afternoon. Small windows of truth lived there. A blue bubble from last week. Can't wait. And another one, he makes me feel. The rest was a blur. I swallowed hard and scrolled until my thumb hurt. There it was, an old photo of the 3 of us at a movie, his arms slung across my shoulders, and her beside us, smiling. In the message thread, her name had 2 hearts. My stomach sank like a stone. It wasn't just a fling. Plans. Dates. Close and steady. The betrayal stung worse as I realized they had hidden things in plain sight. I created a folder on my phone labeled Proof and began saving screenshots. My hands moved like they were on rails. Each image felt like a small victory in a warm knife. I couldn't tell anyone yet. If I accused them without the final piece, they'd say I was jealous, dramatic. I needed the final piece, a photo of a ring, a venue booking, something that showed they were serious. I messaged a mutual friend with a casual, careful line. "Hey, saw an invite. Did you know?" Her reply came quickly. "Yes. I'm so sorry. Call me." That answered nothing and everything. The mutual friend, Ava, met me at a cafe with her hair messy and her face pale like she had run a long way. She hugged me like we used to, but this time her hands trembled. "I tried to tell you," she said. "I didn't know how." Her eyes darted to my phone, which I clutched like a lifeline. She slid a folded receipt across the table. It was for a deposit at a small chapel 2 towns over, dated last month. My heart felt tired and ancient. The names were theirs. There was no mistake. Ava's voice broke as she explained how she suspected months ago. She had seen late-night messages and canceled plans. I told myself it was nothing. They never looked guilty. Her guilt pressed at my chest. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" I asked, though I knew the answer. People hide to protect themselves, or to avoid the blowback. I thought of all the times I waited for him, of whispered good nights, and plans for next summer. Each memory turned darker. I left the cafe with the receipt burned into the back of my eyes. The world looked sharp, too bright. I needed to go to the chapel. I needed to see them booking it, to watch their plan become real. I wanted to hear their voices in a place where vows were promised. If I could document this, prove their intent, I could choose my next move with calm. The truth felt heavy and mine to wield. 5. I drove slowly to the chapel, the city melting behind me. My hands gripped the steering wheel until my knuckles went white. The chapel was small and old, with ivy crawling up the stone. It looked like a place where secret promises like to hide. I parked across the street and sat for a long time, watching the door. My mind rehearsed what I'd say if I saw them. How could you? Why me? Was I a joke? The words shifted like rain. An employee came and left, carrying a clipboard. I followed, pretending to be a visitor. Inside, the woman at the desk smiled like she had no idea of the storms in my head. I asked about bookings, and she glanced at the calendar. There, under a date in 6 weeks, were 2 names. My breath left me. I asked for the contact number and the deposit slip, polite, steady questions. Paper in her hands, she mouthed an apology and handed me a receipt with their signatures. Standing there, with official ink in my hand, the reality grew teeth. This was not a mistake. They had chosen a life together while pretending to choose me. The twist, if any, was that they left traces everywhere. I smiled then, but it was not the broken laugh from before. It was a slow, careful smile. I had evidence now, and I could decide how to use it. I went home with the receipt burning a hole in my pocket. The flat felt like a stage set after a breakup scene, familiar props with none of the warmth. I sat on the couch and spread the proof, messages, photos, the chapel receipt, the wedding invite. Each item was a frame and a picture that showed how long they'd planned. I let myself breathe. Panic would not help. Rage would be loud and useless. I needed a plan that fit my hands. I remembered how he always said I was too kind, too trusting. He meant it like a warning. I had an idea that tasted of iron and salt. Make them see me as I truly was, untouched by shame. Not revenge for cruelty, but a firm taking back. My plan needed to be precise, public, and clean. I wanted the power like a light switch, off for their pretense, on for my truth. First step, gather witnesses. I texted a list of friends, careful with words. Can't talk now. Urgent. Come by tonight. They arrived one after another, concerned and fierce. When they saw the stack of evidence, the room hummed. What do you want to do? Ava asked. I looked at each face, my small army of ordinary people, and I felt certain. We make them answer, I said. They nodded, and the plan took the first real shape. I decided to confront the venue manager directly. If the wedding contract could be cancelled, their narrative could erode. The manager was sympathetic and said he could pause the booking pending proof. He asked for formal evidence. I sent him a packet, the receipts, screenshots, dates. He agreed to delay. It was a small victory, but enough to twist their path. If the venue was held, they would have to face questions. The net tightened a fraction. They noticed the venue pause immediately. His messages turned sharper. You can't stop love, he wrote in all caps once. I read it and felt nothing but a soft, clinical sadness. People sent articles about public humiliation being cruel. I read them and set them aside. My plan wasn't cruelty, it was making space for truth. I did not want to break them. I wanted them to stop pretending. The next twist came from an unexpected side, her mother. An older woman with strong eyes texted me after seeing the blog post. She asked to meet. I thought she would scold me, but she arrived with a worn photograph of her daughter as a child. The photograph showed laughter and innocence. She looked at me like a judge, and then like a sister. Did he know? She asked simply. I told her everything. She took a long breath and said, Then he is not the man I thought. Her support shifted the battleground. Families matter in weddings, and allies inside their kin could sway decisions. She promised to speak at home, to bring my voice into family spaces where I couldn't reach. It was a kind of justice I hadn't planned, an ally inside their circle. News traveled fast. The groom's family started asking questions. The pressure was not from strangers anymore. It was from people who had watched him grow. The world they had built began to feel tight and crowded with witnesses. Pressure mounted like a storm cloud. Their friends confronted them. Their families sent guarded messages. The groom tried to hold steady, his public face bright, private words sharp. The bride's ring photos disappeared from her feed. That was a small exploitation, a silent admission. My inbox is filled with offers, podcasts, articles, people who wanted to turn my story into content. I kept turning them down. This wasn't about fame. It was about the quiet dignity of being true. Then came a twist that made my heart stall. An old letter found in his jacket by his sister, in which he wrote about promises to me, notes of love, plans, foolish dreams. She sent the photo to me with a trembling caption, "Didn't know." The letter proved he had intended something real once. It complicates betrayal because love has been honest at some point. But love can leave or betray. The letter made me sadder, not sure. I realized that being public had consequences beyond them. People I loved were dragged into the story. Still, the truth had to be clear. I scheduled a short interview with a local paper and kept to facts. When asked if I wanted to press charges or harm, I said no. I wanted accountability, not revenge. Their world frayed further. The next move would test whether they would choose truth or performance. They tried to spin it as a misunderstanding. The bride posted a long caption about phases, mistakes, and learning. He posted a photo of a sunset and wrote, "Choosing love." People argued in comment threads like two armies. I watched from my couch, a silent general. The twist here was their attempt to act morally superior while hiding actions. It stung because it felt like cheating twice, first with bodies, then with words. Then, unexpectedly, a mutual friend sent me a voice note. It was him, recorded accidentally, speaking with a woman, saying he didn't know how to tell me. The recording was messy and raw. It was evidence in a human voice that betrayed intention and guilt. Hearing him admit confusion, not remorse, was strange. My hands were steady as I loaded the file and saved it. Voices feel truer than typed words sometimes. I decided to release the voice to a small circle of close friends and family, not to shame but to show the truth of his tone. The ripple was immediate. Many who had defended them went quiet. Their public spin couldn't silence a voice. It was a new twist, one that made their story less tidy. With each truth exposed, the world tilted toward accountability. I felt a strange relief. Truth had a way of being loud and slow. The next night, a knock on my door startled me. It was the bride. She stood there with eyes rimmed red, clutching a small bouquet like an offering. "Can we talk?" she whispered. My instincts said lock the door. My heart, oddly, said see her. I let her in. She sat like a child with a secret that had grown too big. She apologized, not in rehearsed words but trembling ones. She said she was scared and confused, that loving him had felt like a lifeline at first, and she hadn't known how to stop. Listening to her felt like tending a burned plant. I did not soften my voice for her sake. I asked simple things. Did you love him? Did you mean to hurt me? Her answers were messy and small. The twist was not in her words, but in my reaction. I felt pity, not rage. The pain of betrayal was still true, but the human inside the betrayer showed. I told her I forgave her in a way that surprised us both, not forgiving the act, but choosing not to be consumed by it. She left shaken and relieved. Outside, she tossed the bouquet into a nearby trash can like a symbol. I felt oddly free. The path forward was not vengeance. It was a firm, steady reclaiming. I had to decide what I wanted my life to look like after the dust. With the bride stepping back and family pressure rising, the groom's options narrowed. He oscillated between broken attempts at apology and defensive storms. I kept documents and voices safe in a folder labeled when needed. The world still asked for clips and sound bites. I kept refusing. My life needed rebuilding, not headlines. Then came a twist I hadn't expected, an apology letter posted publicly, handwritten, shaky but long. He detailed mistakes, promised change, and asked for a second chance. People argued. Some said everyone deserves redemption. Others said promises mean little without proof. That letter complicated public opinion. I read it aloud to the room of friends and felt each word like a small weight. It had honesty in parts and excuses in others. I replied publicly with one line. Redemption is earned, not requested. That stance landed hard. People either applauded or sneered. The groom tried to argue, to say I was cruel. I kept quiet. I did something different. I began to rebuild my days. I enrolled in a night class I'd always wanted, started painting again, and felt my fingers unclench. The day I laughed without thinking of them felt revolutionary. Life was moving forward, and that was the sweetest twist. A quiet month passed with small victories. Friends came over more, laughter returned in cautious waves. The groom tried one last public plea to keep their plans, promising therapy and truth. The venue manager called to say the couple insisted on their date and had hired a lawyer. My chest tightened. The next twist loomed, a legal threat that could drag everything into court. I met with a lawyer friend who explained the basics. No one could stop a wedding unless there was a legal ground like bigamy or fraud. My evidence wasn't criminal, it was human. The lawyer suggested privacy requests and a cease and desist if they defamed me. I felt both small and large at once. I had not wanted legal fights. But I also didn't want them to continue as if nothing had happened. We rehearsed words like actors in a play, but real. My friends helped me think through every angle. Public humiliation wasn't the goal. I wanted clarity and accountability. I decided to send a reply to the wedding invitation. A short, polite RSVP with a twist. Notation. I typed, erased, typed again. We needed a moment where they would see who I was and what they'd done, but in a way that left them no room to call me petty. Ava suggested something bold, an RSVP that included a small insert, a printed note with the evidence attached, sent to the venue and the guest list. Make it impossible to ignore, she said. Another friend, Marco, who worked at a bakery, offered to deliver the note with a cake for their rehearsal dinner. My hands moved faster now, steady and sure. We printed copies of messages and photos and the deposit receipt, stapled them to a heavy cardstock, and wrote a clear, calm line. I accept the invitation on the condition that the truth is spoken. The card felt heavy like justice. I hesitated before mailing the first one. The fear of looking childish was loud for a second. Then I thought of the nights I spent awake thinking of them. That fear faded. I slipped the insert into an envelope, sealed it, and walked to the postbox. With one push, the envelope flew away, carrying a tiny thunderstorm. The day of the rehearsal dinner arrived like a gray sky. I followed the social media breadcrumbs. Photos of floral arrangements, lists of music, the venue's hashtag. They posted smiles like armor. My heartbeat was calm because I had prepared. Marco texted that he would deliver the cake with the insert. He said it would arrive right before the rehearsal started. I watched the live stories from the venue and breathed. It felt like sitting in a dark theater, waiting for the light. At 7:30, a video popped up, their faces, excited, sleeves rolled up, accepting a cake shaped like tiny wedding bells. The baker, Marco, waved at the camera and then, with hands steady, slid the small card under the cake box. The clip stopped. My fingers itched to smash my phone. I told myself the plan needed patience. A few minutes later, someone at the party posted a photo of a table with envelopes. A close-up showed one card, half pulled from an envelope. The text on it was visible. I accept the invitation on the condition that the truth is spoken. The comment thread lit up. People began to ask questions in public. The air at the rehearsal dinner must have shifted. I sat on my couch and waited for the ripples. The first reaction came from him. A short, sharp message to me. What's this? Who sent that? That was the first crack in their armor. His message arrived like guilty footsteps. Who sent that? He demanded. I replied with a single line, you know. My phone chimed with an incoming call. It was him, voice shaking with anger and something like fear. He accused me, called me dramatic, and called me desperate. He begged, then yelled, then begged again. All the while, social media filled with speculation, friends messaging me, strangers commenting. The world had become loud. She texted me too, comment first, then icy. Stop, she wrote. This is sick. My chest tightened. She was playing the hurt friend role already. I kept quiet. Public curiosity was a blade that cut both ways. People wanted to know the truth, but truth could get messy. I realized I needed a way to reveal the full story on my terms. A private argument would let them spin their tale. A public statement would not. I drafted a short post and then erased it. I wanted it to be honest but not cruel. Eventually I wrote, I won't be attending the wedding. People deserve the truth. If you want to know why, ask me directly. I posted it with a picture of the invitation on my table. The response was immediate. Messages, calls, a flood of support and curiosity. This was working, but it also forced me forward. The flood of messages forced choices. Some friends urged me to sleep it off. Others wanted blood. I chose neither. I called an old professor from college who taught rhetoric. He had a calm way of shaping words. Say the truth, and leave the rest to them, he advised. Don't weaponize shame. Be honest and strong. His voice was a compass. I needed that kind of tone, clean and clear. I began assembling what I would say when people asked. Bullet points, short and true. How I discovered things. Names of witnesses. Dates. The chapel receipt. My voice needed to be the setting of a fact, not a scream. Each point felt like a brick. I rehearsed the lines until they sounded like me and not a broken echo. When friends gathered that night, they sat with quiet faces and hands full of plates. We were tired but steady. The next morning, a local blogger friend offered to post an interview about my experience. Anonymous editorial. I hesitated. Exposure could be messy, but anonymity felt like cowardice. I agreed to a short piece with my full name. Tell the story plainly, the blogger said. People will listen. I prepared the interview, focusing on truth, not spectacle. The plan was clear. Truth in public, measured, unmoving. If they wanted to dance at their wedding, they would do it under bright lights. The interview went live, and the internet hummed like a hive. Comments poured in, sympathy, outrage, conspiracy theories. Some people messaged with stories of similar betrayals. Friends rallied with photos of happier times with me, showing who I had been. The coverage made them slip, just a little. Their social circles shifted as people took sides. He sent me a message late that night, softer this time. We can fix this, he wrote. Please, let's talk. I could hear the plea through the screen, and it made my breath short. I agreed to meet, not in private but at a quiet park bench where other people could witness the exchange. He arrived with nervous apologies and rehearsed explanations. She came later, wearing the same small apology. Seeing them together, both hurting and defensive, was strange. They looked like people who had built a house on a foundation of sand. I spoke the bullet points cleanly, the receipts, the messages. They tried to redirect to my reactions, to make me the dramatic one. The park bench was no trial, but it had witnesses. People nearby glanced, some listened. He begged forgiveness in confusing fragments and promised to cancel the wedding. She cried and said she loved him. I felt something unwind inside me, a release that came from being calm and seen. But when I asked for a clear end, no contact, an honest public apology, they both blinked away. Their plan was not undone yet. They had one more move. After the park meeting, the paparazzi of social life buzzed louder. Friends who had stayed neutral now posted veiled comments. He went silent on social media for a day, then came back with a message about healing and moving forward, which read like a safe, empty him. She posted pictures from their engagement shoot, bright smiles and hands intertwined, like nothing had happened. That was the twist. They tried to act as if truth was a rumor. My phone kept lighting up with strangers offering advice. Some told me to sue. Others told me to move on. I wanted a firm conclusion, not 1,000 wandering roads. The chapel deposit proved they had planned. But plans do not equal vows. I thought about the power of a promise made in front of witnesses. If they wanted to stand before people and swear love, then something had to be true in that room. If they intended to hide infidelity, then the room was the wrong place to bloom. I decided to shift my strategy. Instead of blocking them with law, I would outshine with life. Public exposure had done its work, now living honestly would be the proof. I accepted an offer to teach a weekend art class. The first day, strangers filled the chairs, eager and open. They gave me a sense that life would continue beyond the story. That was the quiet power I chose. Pressure on them continued. Her family was divided. His parents avoided social gatherings. The couple tried to proceed, but their world had become small and public. Then the biggest twist. The groom canceled the wedding himself, claiming he couldn't go through with it. The news came like thunder. Social posts flashed, explanations offered and retracted. People speculated on the reason: guilt, pressure, fear. The bride posted a short line, "I am heartbroken," and then deleted it. I felt a complex relief. My chest unclenched in slow relief. But relief and victory are not the same. I thought of our history, of the plans we whispered, of the nights I thought things would last. I allowed myself real tears, not greedy ones, but honest grief for what had been lost. Grief lit a new door. Behind it, a life for myself waited. The groom sent one last message. I'm sorry. I replied simply, goodbye. My friends cheered privately, but I refused to turn the moment into spectacle. I chose to bake bread that evening, a small, grounding practice. The twist of cancellation felt like both an end and a stepping stone. Days after the cancellation, the bride reached out with a final offer, a face-to-face in public to clear the air. I agreed on one condition. We would meet at a community center with a few witnesses present. She arrived carrying a box of old friendship mementos, ticket stubs, silly notes, like contrition wrapped in nostalgia. She wanted closure. I wanted honesty. We traded small memories and careful sentences. The twist here was tenderness in a place of broken promises. She apologized again and again, sometimes with sincerity, sometimes with the rehearsed tone of someone who had learned an apology like a script. I accepted her words but set boundaries. No contact, no involvement in my life. She nodded, and we both cried. It was a sad, human thing. Two people who had hurt each other but also once loved a similar light. After she left, I opened the box and touched a ticket stub that said Spring Fair. It felt like a relic of a gentler life. I placed it in a small jar labeled Lessons and sealed it. The small ritual felt like ceremonially closing a wound. My hands, once shaking, steadied. The next chapter of my life would be quiet, deliberate, and mine. With the public storm settling, I focused on rebuilding. The art class grew into a tiny community. My students became Saturdays in steady light. I dated the idea of joy like a new language. Friends invited me out, and I learned how to say yes without looking for permission. Little twists kept appearing. An old flame sent a message asking if I was okay, strangers praised my blog post, and a neighbor invited me for dinner. Life kept pushing in warm directions. One evening, while washing paintbrushes, I found a postcard sliding from an old book. On the back, his handwriting said, "Please never change." It made me laugh, a small, honest sound. Change was already afoot. I had not only survived, I had altered how I moved through days. I started volunteering at the community center where I had met the bride that last time. Helping others gave my life purpose beyond a single story. Then came an unexpected twist. A short note from the groom's sister asking if we could meet for tea. She wanted to apologize properly and bring closure. I agreed. Her repentance felt sincere, the kind that comes from watching someone you love make hard choices. We talked for hours about family, mistakes, and how people can learn to be better. It felt like another stitch in the long mending of things. The sister's apology led to a slow thaw in parts of his family. It did not change what had happened, but it softened edges. I found myself in a place where anger no longer had all the room. The twist now was quiet growth, not fireworks, but a steady rebuilding. I started writing again, gentle essays about trust, art, and small joys. My words reached people who had been through similar pain, and they wrote back with thanks. That kind of ripple felt like a lamp turned on. One day, a gallery owner visited my art class and asked if I wanted to display work in a group show. The offer felt like sunlight. I agreed, thinking of small paintings hung under warm lights. Preparing for the show forced me to craft a new self-image, an artist who had weathered storms. Each brushstroke felt like a decision to make something beautiful from wreckage. The opening night came and was modest but bright. People I loved showed up. The groom did not. The bride did not. Their absence did not matter. The twist was that absence can be a kind of presence. It made the room belong to me. I stood by my paintings and felt whole in a way I hadn't in a long time. The show gave me confidence. I sold a painting to a woman who told me it reminded her of resilience. I felt proud in a quiet, honest way. The world had moved from spectacle to substance. News cycles forgot the story, and that was a relief. But one final twist awaited. The bride reached out to tell me she was leaving the town. She wrote a short message. "I need to find myself." That was the closure we both needed. I sent her back a picture of the jar labeled Lessons. "Find what you need," I wrote. "Live honestly." She replied with a short, grateful note. The exchange felt like full-stop punctuation. I had no desire to gloat. Gloating would cheapen what I'd learned. Instead, I chose to wish them both well and hold to boundaries. The final twist was grace, firm, not soft. Then, an unexpected thing happened. A letter arrived from someone I barely knew, a person who read my essay about trust. He wrote long and kind words about second chances and offered friendship. We exchanged a few messages, careful and polite. It felt like the world had space for new beginnings that were not tied to old ghosts. Life settled into a steady rhythm. My art, classes, and small circles became the core. I traveled to a small coastal town for a weekend and felt the salt air scrub things clean. I thought about how I had once wanted revenge in sharp, angry lines. Revenge would have left scars. What I had chosen, truth, public facts, and then rebuilding, was softer but stronger. It left me intact. One evening, preparing soup, my phone buzzed with a brief notification. The wedding venue had posted a public statement canceling all events for the upcoming season, citing unexpected circumstances. It was quiet and official. I smiled and stirred my soup. It felt like the last loose thread being tucked in. I had learned that exposure can be a tool, but only when used with care. I had learned that people could change or not, but my life didn't have to orbit their choices. I lit a candle and watched the flame steady. The final twist was ordinary. Life goes on, often better than before. Months later, I stood in a small gallery again, this time with friends and new lovers of art. A woman walked up, eyes bright, and introduced herself as someone who had been hurt but had rebuilt. She said, "Your story helped." My chest warmed. I thought about how I had started with an invitation that made me laugh, because laughter was the only sound left. That laugh became the first note in a song of reclaiming. I kept the wedding invitation in a small box under my bed, not to punish but to remember. The box had lessons, not scars. I had learned to ask for truth, to hold boundaries, and to rebuild with intention. My life is filled with small joys, painting, teaching, long walks at dawn. The final twist was peace, quiet and sturdy. I sent one last message to both of them. I hope you find what you need. I am finding mine. It was brief and true. Then I closed my phone, stepped outside into the bright day, and walked forward without looking back. The past had shaped me, but it did not own me. If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe to my YouTube channel and tap the bell to get notified the moment we drop a new story, and don't forget to like the video to help others find it.